welcome to Let's Pod This. My name is Andy Moore. We're so glad that you're here today. Thanks for joining us another week of our podcast. Joining me today is Dr. Scott Melson. Hello, sir.
What's up, dude?
How are you?
It got hot again.
It is hot. You know, I said that today on the phone to a guy from Georgia, and he's like, last time I talked to you it was hot. And I was like, yes, but it's a different kind of hot.
You know, like it was nice. Man, this weekend, this weather for 4th of July was like
it's lovely.
It's maybe the nicest 4th of July that I can remember. My mom swears that there was a 4th of July in my lifetime in Oklahoma City where we had to wear like jeans and a hoodie.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, if she says that, I'll assume it's true. I don't remember when that was.
I mean, I would guess sometime in the last 36 years, right, that we've had a cool 4th of July?
Probably. I mean, I spent a 4th of July in Wisconsin about 10 years ago. That's the only 4th of July that I remember wearing a hoodie.
Yeah.
But this was awesome. It was comfortable. It was comfortable to be outside watching the fireworks. It was
good weather for a cookout, good weather for a parade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then and now it's friggin' hot again.
Happy birthday, America.
You know, and hot. And the thing is, people always say that, like, you know, if it's a dry heat, that's better, and that's actually true in some ways.
It is, but that's not what we have here in Oklahoma.
No, it's freaking humid, and
not in the middle of Oklahoma.
Yeah,
Beaver, they get some dry heat.
I'll bet. So I'm over the heat, and also I'm over the COVID thing. I'm over it.
Well, buckle up, partner.
I'll tell you. My patience, not my patience at work, but my patience in myself.
CE, not TS.
Yes, my patience is wearing. Just saw from the CDC today their weekly morbidity and mortality report focused on Oklahoma. There was a big outbreak in a gymnastics facility in early April here in Oklahoma, and the Delta variant was here in early May, in early April. It infected like close to 50 people, 47 I think.
Where was this gymnastics thing?
So it's de-identified, so we don't know, but it was in central Oklahoma, so somewhere here locally in the metro.
So it's like Twist and Shout, or one of those in Edmond, probably. Yeah.
23 gymnasts, 3 staff members, 21 of their household contacts. Mean age of the infected folks was 14. So the COVID can affect children.
Yeah.
The age range was 5 to 58. One of those people wound up in the ICU, which is not good. But you know what? Of those 47 people, do you know what 43 of them had in common?
They were not vaccinated.
Golly,
that's sad.
Yeah, so that's 90% of people in that outbreak. Were unvaccinated.
That's how outbreaks happen.
Yeah, and 2 adults, both of whom were unvaccinated, wound up in the hospital, and one of those was in the ICU. So, there were apparently in the contact tracing, there was really robust contact tracing done. In relationship to this outbreak, there were 194 people that were identified as being exposed. Of those 194, 74 of them were eligible to get the vaccine, but the vast majority of them had not gotten the vaccine.
If there's one of you out there who isn't vaccinated yet, please get vaccinated. Now is the time. You have 2 options at this point. It looks like get vaccinated or get COVID.
Yep, that's it. There's no more time to wait and see. There's no more. I had this conversation with a patient today, a teenager and his mom, and they were not really vaccine hesitant. They're very much pro-vaccine, but they're just a little. They have some questions, and their questions were reasonable, but they said, we're just a little concerned because, he's going to be going back to school next year.
Yeah.
School's back in full time.
Yep.
There's not going to be any masking. There's not going to be any virtual. It's going to be everybody together in the school, and we're just really concerned. And I said, yeah, you should be concerned.
Yeah.
I said, I will tell you, you can get vaccinated with me, or this fall at school he will get COVID.
Yeah.
That's
right
where we're at. They had some legitimate questions about some side effects that have been published for the vaccine, particularly as it relates to adolescent males. And I said, is it possible that he could get myocarditis from the vaccine? It is. but it is much more likely that he'd get myocarditis from COVID. So, like,
right.
It's not, so anyway, please, please, if you're not vaccinated yet, please get vaccinated. And if you have friends, family that aren't vaccinated, please encourage them to as well.
It'll be interesting to see what happens over the next month and a half as we near school, right? At the rate things are increasing, they may have to make decisions. Now, we should also look backwards and see the relative speed and proficiency with which our leadership, elected officials, and others made decisions about COVID in the first place. Now that we know about it, right? I wish I could say it's going to be better and they're going to be faster, more responsive, and better equipped, but I don't think they will.
No, because Andy, COVID is a personal responsibility problem. COVID.
I mean, at this point, it is, right? Like,
I mean, it is and it isn't, right? Like, is it up to everybody to go get their vaccine? Yes, I think what is going to have to, like, to that extent, it's personal responsibility. But I also think, state and local entities could do more to aggressively push vaccination, which they're not.
Right.
Not enough, in my opinion. We passed laws that forbade mask requirements in schools and vaccine requirements for schools.
Right.
I think what's going to come down to, and unfortunately this doesn't help the kids, is employer mandates.
Right.
Employer mandates have recently been shown to be constitutional. This was in federal court. They were found to be constitutional. Since then, we've seen major employers around the metro, including mine, require vaccination. So now the hospital system I work for is requiring vaccination. OU requires vaccination. Another major hospital system here is requiring vaccination. I think we're going to see more and more employers do that too, because employers who rely on their employees, especially after this last year, to be productive and at their desks, whether at home or in the office, employers can't afford to have half their workforce out sick with Delta because they wouldn't get vaccinated. So I think that a big private sector push, it's not the best way to do it in my opinion, but I think that's what we're going to have to see.
That's right. We don't want to see Delta Dawn become Delta Dusk.
I mean, absolutely.
All right. Well, Scott, let's do a little bit of a recap on Oklahoma politics and government. Last week, we discussed the closure of the prison in Fort Supply, right? And this week, State Senator Casey Murdoch, who's from the Panhandle out there, somewhat near Fort Supply, to the extent that anything is near the town of Felt, he asked Governor Stitt to delay closing the prison. I think we talked about how it's really a executive branch decision because it's a state agency decision. Senator Murdoch has raised concerns that closing the prison would cost the state money, which I think seems a little odd, or at least at odds with what the Department of Corrections has indicated, since obviously keeping a half-empty prison open is, not inexpensive. Also, Leader Eccles from the House was quoted as saying that the governor's decision was a tremendous decision. So how do you, Scott, what's your crystal ball say how this is going to shake out?
I think the prison's going to get closed.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's going to happen.
That's what mine says, too.
Senator Murdoch says that he doesn't think... Well, so one, he's asked Governor Stitt to delay closing the prison. The governor, should be said, has already signed off on this and was, to my understanding, enthusiastic about it, right? Like, this isn't like that the governor didn't know what was happening. Senator Murdoch says he doesn't think Governor Stitt had all the information about how this was going to impact the local community. I don't know what the governor did or did not have at his disposal when he decided this, but he's asking Governor Stitt to reverse course. And Andy, has it been your experience during the Stitt administration that he's super willing to reverse course and say, no, we made a mistake, we'll change our plan?
No. He's Governor Stitt's a full speed ahead kind of guy.
Yeah. So I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't really see that. I don't really see that happening. And to your point, Leader Eccles said, no, we need to close the prison. But he also said, what we talked about last week, is that the state of Oklahoma needs to invest in this area to try and help do other things to revitalize their economy, so it's not dependent on the prison.
Right.
I personally think that makes Leader Eccles commie socialist Democrat is what it sounds like to me. When
By
we're
advocating
that sounds to me like another word for central planning. That sounds like Leader Eccles is saying that the government might actually be able to create jobs if it invested some money in Fort Supply. And I would love it if the representative would come on our show and talk with us about how he thinks that can happen, given the other policies that he and his party support and things that they say. But no, I wholeheartedly agree with Leader Eccles. We should close the prison and invest in that community to help revitalize their economy and help create some good jobs for the folks of Fort Supply. I don't know if that'll happen or not, but I think the prison's going to close.
Yeah. Also, I think you're right on that, but I will point out that the government investing in that part of the state to create jobs might not look the way that you're talking about it, right? It could be investing with air quotes
by giving tax cuts to the largest employer in Fort Supply.
Yeah, which was the prison. But and lots of other things that you might disagree with. But
do you think they'll find another electric vehicle company and give them $300 million to put their manufacturing plant in Fort Supply?
Hey, Fort Supply is a good name for it, right?
Right?
We built these and supplied by Fort Supply. That should be somebody call the Chamber of Commerce out there.
Supplied by Fort Supply.
Let's make this happen. All right. Yesterday was Thursday, and it was the legislature's first town hall meeting about congressional redistricting. That's right, sports fans. We're back in the town hall season, and we're back in redistricting. I attended. It went about like you'd expect, Scott. There's probably 30 people in the room, including legislators and staff. So roughly 20, maybe like regular folks, audience members, and about half of those or so gave a public comment or asked a question.
Was Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, was she there?
She was not there. She was referenced once, though. It wasn't like a typical, AOC is a socialist and bad for our country. It was a gentleman who was advocating that all of Oklahoma's congressional districts should be drawn so that they each contain some urban areas and some rural areas, because we don't need districts like hers that are only a very urban district, because they lose touch with the rest of the folks. And I disagree, but I get his point. I don't think anyone agreed with him, but
fine.
Yeah.
Fine. That's fine. You are correct. Like, I do not understand what it is like to be a cattle rancher in western Oklahoma.
Right.
And I should understand more about that. Do cattle ranchers in western Oklahoma, do they lose touch with what happens with people that
Of course,
live in urban areas?
Sure.
Right? So, why is it always the cities are losing touch with rural? Why,
yeah.
It's like a one-way street.
Yes.
It is correct that we are losing touch with each other, and there are things that we should do to, remedy that.
Right.
But, it's not a one-way thing.
Right. No, I agree. And I would argue it probably depends on who you ask, right? Like, you and I both know plenty of urban liberals from Oklahoma or around the country who might speak disparagingly about farmers and rural people, right? For example, all of the sentiment, this is from top-down national politics, that bespeaks a certain, not incredulity, but a disdain for people who, quote, vote not in their best interests, right? Vote against their best interest, which isn't always the case. That is often assigning someone's best interest to them while they may not agree. And that kind of rhetoric has blown up in Democrats' faces at the national level, right?
Over and over again.
Yeah. Obama, Hillary Clinton, all these folks. Anyway.
You're talking about comments like guns and religion, right?
Yes. Right. Yes. And deplorables and all of that stuff. Anyway, here in Oklahoma,
we don't talk like that.
Right. You listeners, if you're interested, you can view the video from the meeting. It's on the Senate website. I will link to it in the show notes here. It's about an hour long, It's not particularly exciting. The first half is the presentation. The first maybe 15, 20 minutes was the presentation. Same ones they've always given. Even T.W. Shannon was there. He did part of it. He showed up to earn his $6,250 a month.
He's on the commission.
He's like
he's
the face of the House redistricting.
That's right.
Which thus far has just meant him showing up to a few meetings. He's not like drawing the maps or anything. He is running for office. That's what's happening here. Anyway, if you'd like to watch the video of the meeting, you're welcome to. It's on the Senate website. I will link to it in the show notes. About an hour long, and it's mildly entertaining. But it's always interesting to see the public's comment. And in fact, you can see me. I thought it was a good question about legislative redistricting. Also, I was there, and I tweeted about the meeting from the People Not Politicians Twitter account, which is at PNP4, the number 4, okay. So you can go read my tweets about it. I will also link to that in the show notes to make it even easier on you listeners, because that's why we're here. So today is the Friday. It's also the 1-year anniversary of the famous McGirt ruling, which we've discussed at length, I believe, on the show over the last year. And so naturally, yesterday, a court overturned a murder conviction due to the ruling. Now, Scott, despite some of the news headlines and fear-mongering you might see, both from the media and from the governor's office, this guy isn't actually getting out of prison because he was also convicted of arson, desecrating a corpse, and possessing a firearm during the commission of a felony.
All very bad things.
Right. And so, but the headline's like, murder charge overturned. Well, yes, but the guy's staying in jail because he desecrated a corpse and set a building on fire, right? Like, there's more to this story than just the fact that one conviction was overturned because of a Supreme Court ruling, which, is already being re-prosecuted in federal court like it's supposed to.
Yeah, I think actually this is important. I think the real meat and potatoes, if you will, of McGirt and kind of what's hitting the fan with McGirt is that recently the Department of the Interior cited the McGirt decision as a reason to assert federal jurisdiction over mining operations on Indian reservations in eastern Oklahoma, which really has the governor in a tizzy.
Yeah.
He had a meeting with the Secretary of the Interior about this, where he said, "We think that your position is wrong." My understanding is that Madam Secretary said, "I understand. We anticipated that would be your response. This is our interpretation of the ruling, and we're moving forward. So we're asserting federal jurisdiction here and taking it away from the state." And so the governor is going to be suing the feds.
Right.
I think he's suing. I don't know if he's suing her or if he's suing the Department of the Interior. I don't know how this works, but we're about to see some legal action that is going to determine, does McGirt apply only to criminal cases as prosecuted under the Major Crimes Act,
which is what was brought up in the first place.
Right. Or does this disestablishment of reservations hold beyond criminal proceedings under in the Major Crimes Act?
I would say lack of disestablishment.
Yes. The fact that they were not disestablished.
So, that begs the question from me. When it comes to those mining operations then, so basically it's been under the jurisdiction of the state, and the feds are saying, no, it's on Indian land, so it's under our jurisdiction. How do the tribal entities, which are sovereign governments, right? Like, how do they feel? Do they have ground to argue?
I don't know. My assumption is that this is happening because of provisions that are in the treaties that are at play here
that we've also ignored.
But apparently aren't going to anymore.
Right. I mean, I'm no attorney, and certainly not when it comes to tribal law. But if I was the Cherokee Nation or something, and mines are on my land, and the feds are saying, no, the state can't do it, it's up to us, I'd be like, well, hang on there, Hoss. Like, how about it's our land, and we can choose to lease it out to whomever we choose. or we can choose to mine it ourselves.
I mean, that makes sense to me.
You gave us the land, and you said you didn't take it away, so we're going to keep it.
Well, and the thing is, under the Biden administration, and particularly under the current Secretary of the Interior, that actually may be what happens. So our current Secretary of the Interior, and I'm not saying her name because I don't want to mispronounce it. She is the first native Secretary of the Interior that we have ever had. And so I don't know this, but it would not surprise me if her interpretation of the law is no, the feds have jurisdiction over this, and the way that we are going to use that jurisdiction is to tell the tribes that they can do with it whatever they want.
Right. I hope that's the case, right? Like, it just always feels like it's the feds and the state are two parents arguing over a kid who's in the room and is 15 years old and has a valid opinion on things, right? And so I just don't want the tribes to get hosed again in some other unanticipated way. So anyway, we will pay attention to that. And speaking of which, Scott, guess what's happening on next Tuesday in Tulsa?
If I was going to guess, I would guess that the governor is going to hold a community impact forum on the McGirt ruling and its implications.
You are correct, man.
I'm a good guesser.
You're so good. That's right. The governor is holding a, quote, community impact forum. He did one of these, or a few of these, about race, right? In which I think the first one was all white people, but it was about race relations and policing. This one is about the McGirt ruling and its implications, specifically to do with, again, law enforcement. So it's being co-organized by the Tulsa County District Attorney and the Tulsa County Sheriff's Office. The sheriff will be there with the governor and several other districts attorney.
I think it's districts. I think it's district attorneys. Okay, so we've got the governor, the Tulsa County Sheriff, the DAs. Which one of the tribes are going to be there?
Well, as far as I know, thus far, none.
Wait. What?
So in the Tulsa World article, which is in the show notes here, it says that for the tribal leaders all said they weren't invited, and the Tulsa County DA is like, no, we emailed you, or we emailed your attorneys general, right? Or whatever the tribal general attorney person is. And so the paper asked them, and 3 of the tribe's attorneys general said, oh yeah, we got an email that just said this was happening, and it said a formal invitation will follow. Oh, that it said that you and your chiefs are going to be invited to this. We'll send a formal invitation, and they never did.
And that doesn't sound like Governor Stitt.
Are they looking? I don't know if it's a calendar invite or like a evite or something with foil, like an envelope that they mail. I don't know what the proper.
Send the tribes their Calendly link.
Yeah. Hey, I love Calendly. I don't know what the protocol is for inviting tribal entities to a community impact forum that they're going to feel like is just political theater.
I mean, yeah. I think we'll. I mean, it's going to be really interesting. It's also going to be interesting to see how this plays out as these cases about state versus federal jurisdiction, cases about taxation, cases about land ownership, lease ownership, as all of these non-criminal issues related to McGirt make their way through the courts, and I think invariably land up at the Supreme Court, it's going to be interesting to see because it's a different Supreme Court now than the one that decided the case. McGirt was a 5-4 decision with, I believe, right? It was a 5-4 decision.
Yes.
With Justice Gorsuch in the majority, writing the opinion, but being joined by Justices Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Sonia Sotomayor, Breyer, and Justice Kagan, right?
Yeah.
Justice Ginsburg is no longer there. May she rest in peace, being replaced by Justice Barrett. And so, assuming that Justice Gorsuch were to believe that the failure to disestablish the reservations for the purposes of the Major Crimes Act applied to other areas of law, is there a 5 justice majority still on the court to support that? I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know either. That's fascinating. I can only imagine that the way this community impact forum is going to go down is it's going to be the governor and a number of law enforcement officers or agents talking about convictions being overturned and the threat to people's safety of all these people of having their convictions overturned. However, has anyone been released because of this? Only like one or two, I think.
I think there have been transfers from state custody to federal custody, but I don't think anyone has been released.
I think they've all been recharged under federal law, which is the point.
Right.
And I guess there's a lot more at stake than just this, but and that's why it's like, oh, this is the way we can scare the public, is tell them like rapists and murderers are having their convictions overturned. But there should be a comma there, and then it should say, and then they're being convicted in federal court. But the real issue isn't the crime, right? The real issue is mining operations, taxation, all of these things.
We'll have to see if we can. We'll have to see if we can get a. Let's see if we can get a legal expert on the show to help us sort through some of these questions.
Yeah. Well, Scott, I think we're gonna have a short episode this week. It's been summertime. We've kind of hit the highlights. Is there anything else that you wanted to discuss?
Interim studies. So all the
I forgot all about those.
Interim studies. All of the requested interim studies in the Senate were approved. There were initially 72 requested. One was withdrawn. We don't know what that was, or at least I don't. The remaining 71 were all approved by Senate Pro Tem Treat. The House, they won't announce for another couple of weeks until which of their studies are approved. And then they have until like November to complete their interim studies, and then it's bill filing time, and then it's January, and then we're off to the races.
That's right, and you forget redistricting in special session in there as well.
I mean, yeah, that's gonna be a hoot and a half.
It is. So it's really interesting, I think, to look at the interim studies. If you go to oksenate.gov, you can find them. It's right on the homepage. It's one of the little things that the main graphic there. You can view the list of them, and they are far-reaching, right? The second one, the first one has a long title: Investigate and research the history, advantages, disadvantages, benefits, burdens, qualifications, and possible disqualifications for a hospital to receive not-for-profit status. The second one just says daylight savings time, which I hope we get rid of that deal. But a lot of them are, there's medical marijuana, the needs of the state park system. Senator McCourtney, friend of the show, the rising cost of healthcare and the failure of the current system to incentivize lower prices. Study if Oklahoma has an appropriate number of child welfare workers to service the needs of Oklahomans. No. The answer is no.
Correct.
Scott, this is right up your alley. Do payment disparities between rural and urban providers create gaps in service to either type of community?
That is an interesting question.
It doesn't say what kind of providers. I assume towing services. Could be anything. More medical marijuana. To evaluate the effectiveness of Oklahoma's current tuition assistance program for National Guard service members. Interesting. Supporting pregnant women and expectant fathers in high school. Are fathers expectant? I guess I know what they're saying. It just seems...
That is an odd way to put it.
Yeah. Nursing accommodations for incarcerated mothers. That's a real deal. Golly, that sucks. Like, everything about that sucks. Because there's no accommodations, and it's got to be terrible to be a mother of an infant and be incarcerated. That's very difficult. Tagging trailers. Do you think that's about graffiti? I think so.
Yeah, that seems like it would be.
Legislative budget transparency from Senator Floyd. That sounds like a study that is needed and will go nowhere. This is the case of most interim studies. Comparing provider settings to determine why Oklahoma's healthcare settings are inadequately staffed. Lots about healthcare. Lots about...
I mean, that's good.
Cannabis. one of them just says Oklahoma cannabis industry. So that could be anything.
There's a lot of stuff going on with weed. Did you friend of the show Josh West had a Facebook post today talking about I did not realize that apparently we just have rampant black market operations like all over rural Oklahoma.
Yeah, we should have Ryan Kiesel on. I was talking to him about that the other day. That until that seed to sale program gets up and running, there's no mechanism right now for a retailer to know with certainty where that product came from.
Sure.
Right? And that's the goal of the seed to sale. Yes, it is bureaucracy, but it legitimately does help treat this, right? Also, there's plenty of grow operations that are just growing weed and it's just flowing in the black market. So you've got black market weed coming into Oklahoma. People grow in their backyard. Their buddy owns a dispensary. They take it there. They sell it, right? There's it's just the Wild West out there. And so this new system is supposed to, quite literally track it from seed to sale. So you know where it was grown, where it was tested, and everything about it, which is important because, Scott, this week, just yesterday, Tyson Foods recalled 4.7 million tons or pounds of chicken or something for another outbreak of something. Well, if that kind of stuff happens, we know, with lettuce, with chives, with chicken, all these things, right? That kind of stuff can happen with medical marijuana as well. And if a farm, sprays all their stuff with a pesticide, doesn't actually get it tested, sells it, and you get sick, you got no recourse.
A major listeria outbreak this week too. So there's a raw milk manufacturer in Claremore, I think, that recalled a lot of their raw milk because it was found to have listeria in it, which is bad news. Listeria is a bad disease, so
it'll kill you.
If any of you bought raw milk in Claremore recently, then you might want to throw it away. But
also, I'm not a medical professional like you are, but don't drink raw milk.
There's also that. Pasteurization saves people.
Effie has a story about some lawmakers somewhere that had a bill supporting raw milk, and they all drank it on the floor of the chamber as a show of support. They all got sick.
So I drank raw milk for a little while from a co-op for a year, and I'll tell you something. It was awesome. It was so good.
Is it notably better than pasteurized?
I think it's mostly because it's non-homogenized, right? So
you get the unique flavor of that cow's udder.
Well, and it's so creamy, right? It's so rich because there's literally cream, floating at the top, that you can pick out. It's awesome.
It's designed to raise a baby calf into a full-grown cow. So that's why. But it is not required to drink it. You can drink pasteurized and homogenized and save your life.
But yes, don't do what I did. Go do
as I say, not as I do.
Do not drink raw milk. I don't, even though I did for a very, very short time. So don't do it, and that's the end of my advice for the week.
All right. Well, on that note, we will end this episode. Listeners, thank you for being here. Scott, thank you for being here.
Always.
And listeners, if you would like to participate in any of the subsequent town hall meetings about redistricting, next week there is a virtual one. You can do it from your home. And then towards the end of this month, there's 4 more in-person ones and then a total of 2 virtual ones. You can find them all on peoplenotpoliticians.org. Click on the events. I put them on Eventbrite, so you can drop them right in your calendar. It makes it super easy. They're also on the House and Senate websites, but it's harder to navigate over there. Okay, stay cool. Have a good week. Don't forget that decisions are made by those who show up. We'll see you later.